Breaking news from Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
I'm David Navarro. We continue to follow the breaking news out of Jersey City. An apparent active shooter engaging police right now. Police officer is in the hospital after being shot in the shoulder. Now, this appears to have all started around 12:30 at Bayview Cemetery, and that is where the officer, they're telling us, was shot. Police believe the shooter may have then left the cemetery and entered a bodega on Martin Luther King Drive, where that person remains barricaded. We're getting reports of the man firing shots just moments ago. Police are still trying to sort out whether it is one or two people barricaded inside that bodega. Let's take you live right now to Tony Yates, who's at the scene with the very latest. Tony.
And you know, David, while they're still trying to figure that out, there's a police presence all over this area. We're right off JFK Boulevard. We've seen police officers come from Montclair, from Kearney. We've seen the SWAT team just come in, and there are other officers arriving right now. In fact, we're right here on the corner where this shooter may be inside a store. They're still not sure if that shooter is going from one place to another, but they're saying it is an active shooter. In fact, we were closer up the street, and the fire department came and told us to move back because apparently that shooter, or one of the shooters, may have been jumping from rooftop to rooftop. We do know that some of the schools were on lockdown, but now we see students actually walking home, walking down the street away from this area, but they don't seem to be in any kind of hurry. However, the SWAT team, the cops do seem to still be looking for someone who might be on the loose, and that shooter also, there might be another shooter inside the bodega. They are still kind of sketchy as to what's going on right now or how this started, but definitely there is cop presence in at least 8 blocks surrounding JFK Boulevard right now. They do have the fire department trying to make sure that people don't go in the areas that the cops are trying to get to at this point. As long as they don't know where this other person might be, they're trying to clear out this area. So this is what we're seeing at this point. We've seen some police officers with long guns. We still see more police officers. Billy, if you can show down the street, we believe that cemetery is down the street where you see that tower that looks like it belongs to a church, because a lot of the squad cars are going down there. They blocked off part of that street in the last 5 minutes or so. And again, they have a lot of forces headed down that way. Also, 1 block from us and up the street, maybe another location. We're not sure how many locations there are right now. They seem to say that this person might be going from one place to another. There are undercover cars all over the place at this point right now. And so far, we know that at least 1 police officer was shot in the shoulder at that cemetery. We don't know if anybody else was injured. That is the latest from JFK Boulevard here in Jersey City. We'll continue, of course, to monitor this situation that we seem to be in the middle of. The fire department keeps telling us, reminding us to be very, very careful because they may not know where someone, an active shooter, might be. For now, we're live here in Jersey City. Tony Yates, back to you guys.
Tony, I just want to stay with you for a moment. It's obviously a fluid situation.
Okay.
Lots of questions. It's sounding like there's at least 1 person inside the bodega currently right now. The police have their eye on that person, but the concern is that there may be a second gunman, maybe that was going from roof to roof and trying to escape from all of this?
Exactly. We were headed up to what they're calling the staging area, and as we were headed up Claremont Avenue, they backed us up. The sheriff's department is backing out of that street right now, Billy, if you want to show them that. But they were saying that we needed to move out of that area because there may be an active shooter going from roof to roof. They are not sure right now. They're getting reports of shots fired, and as they hear those shots fired, then they're going to those areas. Right now, we've got the SWAT team backing out off Claremont Avenue. If you go to the right, Billy, you'll see the SWAT team coming out right now on Claremont Avenue back onto JFK Boulevard. They may be heading down to the area near the cemetery. No, they're going back the opposite direction. But they were in one of the areas where that person may have been barricaded in the bodega. We have no idea at this point where they're going. There's so many different scenes right now, and I'm thinking that they are hearing from people who are saying that they heard cop shots fired, and as they talk to those people or get those reports coming in, then they're headed to those areas as well because they just don't know who this person might be, where they might be, or what they might be trying to do. Dave?
I just saw a tweet from the PBA asking for prayers because right now a lot of police officers are putting their lives at risk along with the community to keep the community safe right now. And you can see from some of the pictures you just saw and from the reports we're getting that they have armored vehicles and obviously special armor for the protective armor for the officers who are there. There's the tweet I was just mentioning. We need a lot of prayers right now for Jersey City officers. Keep those involved in your thoughts. Talk to me a little bit about the kind of response that you're seeing. I understand the state police department, along with county and local municipalities, have responded to help.
Yeah, there are hundreds of police officers in this area right now, but here's the thing. I mean, if you look down the street, Billy, on the sidewalk, you can see probably a father with his young son. Again, some of the schools were supposed to be on lockdown, and we see students with backpacks heading in the opposite direction from that school as police officers continue to arrive, and they are changing the locations about where they were going. The SWAT team was up here on Bergen Avenue and Claremont Avenue for only about 10 minutes before we saw them back out and then head to another direction. And then here we have other officers arriving at this scene again, back up Claremont Avenue and Bergen Avenue. That's where we tried to go earlier, and the fire department stopped us saying there's an active shooter and we needed to be careful. We couldn't go as far as they were going up there. So that's what we know thus far. We have not heard any shots fired, and you better believe I'm looking on the rooftop trying to make sure I don't see anything that looks suspicious. So we are being very, very careful. It looks like law enforcement has helicopters in the air at this point. Of course, they would do that with people reporting that someone is jumping from roof to roof.
Tony, I know that the Bayview Cemetery is now part of the scene here that they're investigating, and where they believe at this point, because again, it's an ongoing situation, that where this may have started and where that officer may have been shot. Do we know anything at this point as to what might have started all of this?
We have not heard out here on the scene. Police haven't stopped to try to give us an update or anything. Of course, they're trying to get to where they need to be. Firefighters are being told at this point to keep cars and people out of certain areas. They even moved back here to JFK Boulevard when, I guess about 10 minutes ago, when they were saying that there was an active shooter in the area that they were at. So police have not really stopped to talk to us or tell us anything thus far, at least out here on the scene. They're just trying to get to the areas they need to get to try to catch this supposed person who might be running around with a gun shooting at random. Yeah, I'm imagining you still don't even know much about the victim. All we're told at this point, Jersey City police officer taken to Jersey City Medical Center. Big, heavy police activity there, as you could imagine. And the early reports is that this officer was shot in the shoulder. Have you heard anything more about the officer or the officer's condition from your location, Tony? Not from this location. As we were coming to this area, we were looking at some of the tweets and the updates that you also were getting, and we were hearing that that officer was taken to Jersey City Medical Center with that just one gunshot to the shoulder. We heard, and it has, of course, not been confirmed, that maybe another officer or another person was also shot, and that some of these police officers out here were trying to confirm that and tried to figure out where that person or where that officer might be. We have not heard an update on that at this point, though. They do have one end of JFK Boulevard shut down, and it looks like it's near where that cemetery is. And they did that within the past 15 minutes or so. And as you can hear, again, more officers coming to the scene. And up Claremont Avenue, I think we're going to take a walk up there to see what's happening up there. They didn't let us drive up there, but obviously with so many cop cars still heading up to Claremont Avenue and Bergen, that still might be one spot that they are very concerned about. Before you head out, and I know you're looking to really start covering this news as a reporter from the scene, I just need you to hang in there for a couple more seconds here. We just got video into the newsroom that apparently reveals the shots, or at least the sound of the shots being fired at the Bayview Cemetery. Why don't we go to that tape right now?
Oh, that big.
Well, the heavily armed officer you see does not seem panicked, but you can hear the shots distinctly being fired in the area. I'm hoping that where this video was taken, it was far enough away that everyone felt safe, but it was obviously loud enough that it makes you wonder what kind of caliber weapon was being used, whether it was a big caliber handgun or even a long gun. No word yet on any of that, right, Tony? You don't know anything about the weaponry used in this?
No, we haven't heard anything about the weapon, but if what you're seeing through photographer Bill White's camera right now is down near that cemetery, they do have that street blocked off right now. You may be able to see the police officers down there with that street blocked off. We don't know what is happening down there at this point, but several officers just went back down to that scene. They're not letting traffic through. We hear more officers coming on that scene, down to that area right now. I'm sorry, I'm just trying to look and see where which way they're going, because like I said, we are in a spot where there are at least two different very active areas going on right now. Hackensack UMC, their paramedics just pulled up. We've got at least 3 more cars going up the street. I think, David, we're going to walk up Claremont Avenue and Bergen Avenue to see what's happening up there. That seems to be where a lot of the officers are headed right now.
I have to ask you, because we're getting reports of a large amount of shots being fired in the area right now. Can you hear anything?
We don't hear any shots whatsoever, but they may be sending these squad cars to where they're hearing shots fired at this point. And it looks like it's either down where we believe the cemetery is and up here Claremont Avenue and Bergen Avenue, which is where these squad cars are headed at this point. But we don't hear any shots at this point.
I got to add this as well. That's just in that New Jersey Transit, as a result of the concerns surrounding the shooting and the police activity, is suspending rail and bus service on the west side of Jersey City. And that, in addition to what you're showing us here, what can you make out what streets are being blocked off from your location, Tony?
I'm looking down the street. I know these streets are off JFK Boulevard, right next to the high school and across the street from that cemetery. I can't see all the way down there. It's beyond Grant Avenue, and then Jersey City College, okay, and then Claremont Avenue and Bergen Avenue. They have that area. They got the shooter. You're hearing they got the shooter. Okay, we're hearing from someone with the fire department. We cannot confirm that at this point now. They just ran over to us and said they got him, they got him. They haven't said where that has happened. Right. We cannot tell if it happened up at Bergen Avenue and Claremont Avenue. We just don't know which area. Do you know, sir, do you know what area it is that where they got the shooter? He's at the shooter in the bodega. In the bodega. They've apprehended him right now. Okay, so we're going to go up Bergen Avenue and Claremont to see what kind of activity is going up there, because apparently they may have gotten the shooter who was at least in the bodega. We're going to go check that out, though, to be sure.
All right, well, again, that is unconfirmed. Obviously, why we need to have you check it out. We're still waiting for official word if, in fact, this has occurred. We were getting reports earlier that the officers at the scene at the bodega did have eyes on a suspect, possibly the gunman involved in this shooting. And if what Tony Yates is hearing from the scene right now is true, there may be a significant update to this. But we're waiting to get this confirmed so far as we continue to follow this breaking news out of Jersey City. Police on the scene of an active shooter, big police response, barricaded ballistic armor officers and armored vehicles. One Jersey City police officer has been shot, taken to Jersey City Medical Center. It appears that officer was shot in the shoulder. We're sending reporters to that scene right now to get the very latest, and of course trying to reach out to the departments. We want to just take a moment just to give you a sense of what we're dealing with here, because we have this dramatic sound. Now, it's important to note, you're going to see video of a heavily armored police officer who's obviously far from the scene, walking not in an urgent manner. But the important thing is to listen, because this officer is obviously feeling like they're in a safe zone. But listen to the shots fired that has come into the newsroom. Let's go to that tape right now. Well, that video was not what I was expecting. That is much more dramatic, and you can see officers stepping back, making sure that they're safe as gunfire was being shot. Now, I told you before, one Jersey City police officer at Jersey City Medical Center. Our community journalist Miguel Arroyo is there right now. And Miguel, what can you tell us about the situation and what you're observing?
Hi, David. Right now I'm outside of the hospital, and as you can imagine, the police activity is very heavy. They're at every entrance of the hospital, and a lot of people who've come out of the hospital say that no one can come in or out. It's currently on lockdown.
Any word on the condition of the officer?
No, as you can imagine, they are not revealing any type of information. They're just trying to keep everyone away from the entrances. So, yeah, that's pretty much what we have from here as of now.
All right, that's community journalist Miguel Arroyo on the scene at Jersey City Medical Center, where one police officer is being treated right now after being, we're told, and this could change, it is a very fluid situation in the shoulder. Now, we are told all of this started at around 12:30. We believe it occurred at Bayview Cemetery where the shots were fired where that officer was hit. I want to go back to Tony Yates, who has been on the scene. And Tony, we just got that new dramatic video that came in, and you could see the heavily armored officers backing up once they heard the shots being fired. Clearly, this is something, from your position, you've been seeing people kind of walking and not too concerned, but clearly, as you get closer to the area of concern, it really is something to worry about.
Yes, it is. When we first arrived, firefighters came up to us, a police officer came up to us and said, listen, you have to go back because we don't know where this active shooter is. The thing is, in the area that we're at, Claremont Avenue and JFK Boulevard, there's a lot of activity here, but we have not heard any shots fired. We're told we're about maybe 2 blocks away from where that bodega is, and just a few minutes ago, as you said, it's not been confirmed that the shooter that at least that was in the bodega has been apprehended. We don't know that, but what we do know at this point, you can see all of these vehicles standing here. Nobody seems to be in emergency rush mode at this point. They are staying here at Claremont Avenue. They've also tried to clear out a lot of the people who were walking around. When we got here about a half an hour ago, there were still people walking. They were carrying their kids. They were carrying their backpacks like they were kids coming from school. We don't see a whole lot of that activity anymore. They've kind of shut down traffic in this area. There's some cars that are backed up because we have the SWAT teams and we have these big police SUVs here. So they're trying to clear out the traffic that did make it through, but more of this heavy equipment, as you can see, is coming in at this point. We don't know exactly where some of these vehicles are headed. It could be down to the cemetery where the shooting first started. It could be at the bodega. Again, we're hearing information that that shooter may have been apprehended at this point, but still a very active scene because we've got more emergency responders showing up here on the scene.
Yeah, no question, Tony. There may be several crime scenes to deal with a case like this, and yet to be revealed to us as we learn more about what happened here. Tony, stay with us. I want to go to Darla Miles. We have a team of reporters covering this breaking news for us. Darla's on the phone. Darla, what have you been able to update anything on this newscast yet?
Well, David, I can tell you that the approach to where Tony is, where the shootout is taking place and the exchange of gunfire is taking place, it's very difficult to approach that area. Lots of traffic, a number of streets barricaded. Right now, I am near Bayview Cemetery, the initial cemetery, the initial scene where this shooting first began. And I can tell you it's very difficult, again, to approach this area. At the intersection of Chapel Avenue and Garfield Avenue near Bayview Cemetery, that street is completely blocked. Apparently there's a search for evidence going on inside the cemetery where the initial interaction took place. This is where that Jersey City police officer was shot in the shoulder, and it led to investigators and responding officers to follow the suspect into that bodega at Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Bayview Avenue. If you can tell I'm just a little winded, David, it's because I'm literally having to walk the entire perimeter of Bayview Cemetery just to get a closer look. I did briefly approach the intersection of Chapel Avenue and Garfield Avenue. I was immediately turned around by police officers. And what I can also tell you, David, is on the way here, you saw lots of responding officers from other municipalities. I saw New Jersey State troopers zooming past us on the turnpike in order to get to the scene. And as Tony mentioned, there are a lot of bystanders here. So even on the approach, even if you can't necessarily, if you're not maybe about a block away from the scene, a lot of people outside taking video with their phone. Now, as I'm walking around Bayview Cemetery, I am approaching, let's see, what street am I on? I'm on Ocean Avenue, and now I'm approaching Chapel Avenue from a different direction, and I can already see the flashing lights ahead of me. I did learn from one of our Eyewitness News photographers, Lee Harrington, at his location near Bayview Cemetery. You can also see lots of officers, guns drawn. Again, police officers are definitely on alert after such a high-level incident involving a suspect, long guns, and then an exchange of gunfire. On Ocean Avenue, if you are driving in Jersey City, this avenue actually appears to be open. But if you are trying to approach Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard in Bayview, definitely stay away from there. Number one, because there's lots of traffic, and secondly, as Tony mentioned, there is an exchange of gunfire. David, if you give me a few more minutes, I'm almost to the end of the block, and I can give you a better sense of what it looks like near Bayview Cemetery, where they're searching for evidence right now. But at this point, do you have any specific questions that I can help?
Yeah, Darla, I mean,
for you? Yeah.
In terms of the scene at the cemetery, does it look like it's an evidence at stage right now, rather than there being any concern that there's still an active gunman at the cemetery? Can you tell?
I don't believe there is. That you have the level of response here in terms of what you're seeing at Tony's scene with the SWAT team, that there is an active scene here. So as I'm approaching, it doesn't appear as if that's the case. But we're right now really trying to determine what type of gunfire could have taken place at a cemetery that could have escalated to this kind of interaction with police officers with an exchange of gunfire.
Well, Darla, you stay on top of this for us, and I'm going to come back to you in just a moment. But we're trying to assess really what we're dealing with in this situation. It's from the little pieces that we've been getting so far. It appears a shooting happened at the Bayview Cemetery, and that a gunman, possibly fleeing the scene, ran into a bodega. From the bodega, we're being told there were shots being fired as well. And that brings into what you do in a situation like that, because for a time, and it may have ended, there is some reports, although unconfirmed, that the gunman there has been neutralized, if you will, but we don't know that yet. But at any rate, there was a real concern for some time here that there's someone in that bodega, and you presumably there may be customers, there may be workers there, and barricading themselves from the police. We have on the phone with us, and forgive me, officer, if I'm saying your name wrong. They just said it in my ear very quickly, but I got James Jackhorn. Is that correct? Joseph?
Yes.
Joseph, can you hear me? I understand you have experience with barricade situations for the NYPD. Kind of walk us through how you approach a situation like this. I know that they have special vehicles that often use their armored robotic vehicles that will do some of the negotiations in these kind of situations. Tell us what the protocol is.
Well, certainly, one of the things you want to do is be able to try to get the negotiators in there to try to get the conversation going on between the police and the suspects. I was actually involved in a situation similar to like this in the Bronx many years ago. They can be very, very difficult to deal with, especially when you don't know how many people might be involved and how many victims and if there are hostages involved. So there's a lot of things that the police have to figure out before they go marching in.
Clearly, having the tools to deal with something like this are key. What kind of things might they deploy in a situation like this?
Well, they can send in a robot. We've seen that happen, especially in Dallas. We saw them do that, where they sent in a robot to go around and look around to see what's happening, see if there's anybody in there. We don't know the extent of how armed this person is, how many rounds of ammunition they have. So any type of intel that they can get, whether it's through cameras or whether it's through phone conversations, whatever it may be, or even eyewitnesses.
All right, retired officer Joseph Giacolone, I want to thank you so much for helping us out with this, and please stay near the phone. I have a feeling we may be needing your expertise shortly and in the future. I want to go back to our audience and just kind of brief you if you're just joining us right now. Sometime around 12:30, shots were fired at Bayview Cemetery. A Jersey City police officer was wounded in the shooting, was taken to Jersey City Medical Center, where that officer is being treated as we speak. It appears that officer was shot in the shoulder. Now, we don't know what started all of this, but right now the initial reports are that that gunman, or at least that gunman, there may be two involved, then ran to a bodega near that cemetery and then was held up there, barricading that person barricaded themselves as officers responded to the scene. While in that bodega, again, we don't know if he was holding or she was holding hostages, or if anybody else was injured. We still don't know what was going on in that bodega, but we do have reports that shots were fired and an exchange was occurring, or at least shots were being fired out of that bodega at the police officers. The PBA for Jersey City tweeting out prayers to the officers who were responding to this scene, putting their lives on the line in face of danger, not knowing exactly what they were dealing with, whether it is one gunman, but you can see the intense police response, SWAT teams, armored trucks, special armor to protect them from them. I want to go back to Tony Yates, who's been covering this for us on the scene. And Tony, give us an update.
Okay, we are at JFK and Grant Avenue. You can see the SWAT team. They've been here for about 5 minutes or so. We've got Newark Bomb Squad, Newark Special Operations. They're backing out of Grant Avenue right now. They appear to be headed back down towards where that cemetery is. Now, everything seems to have calmed down somewhat. We are not hearing any more reports of shots being fired. Up the street, there are several police officers, other SWAT units up the street on that block. You can also see that there's still people who are walking around. State police have their helicopter up over the scene right now. They are headed in the direction of that cemetery, so we don't know if there's anything else happening down there, if they're still looking for a second shooter at this point. We were told earlier that the shooter that was in the bodega may have been apprehended at this point. We still have units coming into Jersey City to help out. They still have one end of JFK Boulevard blocked off again. It is near that cemetery where the first shooting happened, and all of a sudden we're seeing other people coming out of their homes, coming out of the bodegas at this point. So it is a little bit of a stand down, at least for people in this area, trying to figure out also what happened. But once police officers and firefighters said that there was an active shooter in the area, they were trying to clear the streets out. Now you see people coming out, but you also have more emergency vehicles coming down the street. If you take a look down JFK Boulevard, more are coming. So we seem to be kind of in the center of where everything is happening and the area of concern for law enforcement right now. But most importantly, they want to make sure that no one is still walking around the city with a gun. I don't know if they've gotten any more reports of shots fired, but JFK is loaded right now, as you can see, with emergency vehicles from Union City, from Newark, from Kearney, of course, Jersey City, the prosecutor's office, state police. Everyone is out here trying to make sure that things stay safe. You see these heavy equipment vehicles coming up right now, also with some traffic that is trying to get up the street as well. A long contingency of these emergency vehicles coming. We don't know where they're headed or what their concern is at this point, but it is a very active scene.
Yeah, Tony, we want to remind our audience it is a very fluid, active situation. The facts on this can change as they come in initially. I want to go right now to the Board of Ed president for Jersey City, Saddam Thomas. And I know this is a frightening kind of event to have to listen to and watch on TV. Please give me your reaction so far on what you know about what's going on at this situation.
Yes, this is a, as you guys rightly pointed out, it's a fastly unfolding situation. But what I like to reiterate to the viewers is that all of the public schools in Jersey City All 43 schools are currently on lockdown. All of our students and staff are safe. They're inside the school buildings, and there is no reported activity in or inside of our schools or around. And that's the update that I can give at this point of time. In terms of what's going on, we heard earlier in the day there was some shooting by the Bayview Cemetery, and those gunmen moved west into MLK Boulevard, and they're probably holed up in a kosher deli or a supermarket. And there's a couple of folks who say that they're contained inside that facility, but as an abundance of caution, the school district, all of our public schools are on lockdown, and parents have received a robocall and an email, and we are watching the situation to figure out how to manage the dismissal, which takes place in about 40 minutes from now. So at this point, we've asked parents not to come to the school. We have all of the kids safe inside the school, and the safety of our children, 30,000 kids, and our 6,000 employees is paramount to us.
Mr. Thomas, when were you alerted of there being a concern and for the schools to be put in lockdown?
The superintendent of schools, Mr. Walker, called me about probably an hour ago, and he explained to me about an unfolding situation. At that point, the district had taken a decision to put, I think, probably place about 7 of our schools on lockdown. Most of these schools are on the south side of the city, Lincoln High School, Snyder, and so most of these schools are on the south side of the city. But as the situation started unfolding, we realized that this was a situation that needed us to respond in full measure. So we went ahead and made a decision to have all of the schools on lockdown, and all of our parents have been communicated with through robocalls and through emails. And, as we said, we're watching the situation to see what we should do next in terms of how to manage the dismissal at 3 o'clock.
All right. Thank you so much. Board of Ed President Sudan Thomas joining us with the briefing. All 43 schools on lockdown. And this also includes New Jersey City University is also on lockdown. You're looking at live pictures at the scene, heavily armed officer responding. I want to go back to Tony Yates. Tony, I have some update to give you. We're told that at this point that the gunfire stopped from the bodega. Police are starting to slowly move towards that bodega, and in the effort, they're trying to clear out anybody that might be caught in the fire, any innocent people in the streets. And as they were doing that, actually, more shots were fired. So there were more shots as we were on the air within moments from your report. You probably can't hear them all with all the activity that's going on, but there's at least one victim, we're told, from the bodega being treated and is talking to police. That person must have gotten out somehow, giving them very important information. That person told them there were as many as 4 other people inside the bodega at the time the shooting occurred. And at this point, Tony, their conditions and whereabouts are unknown. I wanted to share some of that, give you the latest from our position. Any updates from yours?
Right. No updates from police at this point, but we heard the same thing when we arrived. We had been told that maybe someone else was either carrying a gun or somebody else had been shot, and some of those officers, you can imagine, was probably looking for that person or those people to make sure that they're okay. We're still at JFK Boulevard and Grant Avenue, and you can see some emergency response teams getting their gear, getting their long guns, getting prepared to go to wherever they need to be. We've got Paramus Police. We've got Paramus Police Department with these large armored vehicles. We've got Garfield with their equipment here as well. But everybody seems to be in pretty much a slowdown mode. When those shots were fired, I'm thinking that that bodega is a couple of blocks away from where we are right now, because at no time did we hear shots fired. We were just told to move back because shots were still being fired. They weren't loud enough for us to hear where we were. As you can see also, people are coming out of their homes. They're coming out of some of the bodegas trying to figure out what is going on. I know a lot of people heard the same thing that we heard, that there was an active shooter who was going from roof to roof. We have not gotten an update on that person, but everybody seems to be in a little bit of more slow down mode, getting their equipment together, getting their crews together to head to, I guess, wherever their supervisors are having them go. But this is going to be a very active scene for some time now, because none of these officers, none of these squads are leaving at this point. There are more coming, and we believe that cemetery is right down the street beyond where you see those armored vehicles parked. And I would imagine at this point, if there is not an active shooter, they at least need to start collecting the evidence to try to figure out exactly what happened. So no other traffic is going down that area. They're not necessarily letting anybody walk down that area. It has been taken over by law enforcement as they try to figure out what's going on and if it is safe right now for the people in this area to come out of their homes if need be.
Yeah,
David.
no question, Tony. Keeping the community safe, priority one right now. We just got something in from New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy, a statement from the governor on the incident. I'm going to read it to you. I have been briefed on the unfolding situation in Jersey City. Our thoughts and prayers are with the men and women of the Jersey City Police Department, especially with the officer shot during the standoff and with the residents and school children currently under lockdown. I have every confidence in our law enforcement professionals to ensure the safety of the community and resolve this situation. Today reminds us of their bravery and the sacrifice they and their families make for our communities. Mayor Bill de Blasio also helping right now. The NYPD, he says in a statement and a tweet, is closely monitoring the ongoing situation in Jersey City, and we stand ready to assist in any way we can. Please keep our neighbors in Jersey City in our thoughts today, especially the brave officers and first responders going into harm's way to protect lives. And it's important, when the Governor Murphy issued his statement, he didn't say officer, he actually said officers who were injured. So that may be something that will be explored later as we learn more about this situation. And New York ESU is also assisting. To give you just a little sense of the drama that we're dealing with, we actually have some video and some audio of part of the shooting that occurred. Let's play that right now. Very dramatic video indeed. And now we're getting word from our assignment desk here that at least one suspect, possibly two, appear neutralized. This is reportable, we're told. There may be a fatality and all of that. They're sending police, we're being told, right now, sending in a robotic device to go in. You can see some of the response right now. Let's go to Darla Miles live with an update. Darla.
So, David, when we spoke about an hour ago or a couple minutes ago, let me just tell you how things played out. You see these officers here, this barricaded street, Garfield Avenue and Chapel Avenue. So that's where I was. But because I couldn't get just this short block around, I had to walk completely around Bayview Cemetery. And so it took me a minute, and now I have connected with the crew. And you can see, again, where Danforth Avenue and Garfield Avenue is barricaded. Now, what we know so far, David, is this is the scene of the initial interaction with Jersey City police officers and the suspect or suspects. I have learned from some of my sources that these may have been plainclothes Jersey City officers, but again, we're not clear as to what led to the initial shooting. Sources also tell me after they made their first 911 call, there was an 8-minute after. They say there was a 911 call for an officer down in the cemetery. 8 minutes later, that's when that active shooter scene started to unfold where Tony Yates is. Right now, we've heard some helicopters in the air. It could very well be our news helicopters or police, law enforcement helicopters, because we do know that there is a search underway for evidence inside the cemetery right now. On your approaches here, there is a ton of traffic, and we're not clear, if this is safe or not, as you mentioned, David, because I've been checking in and out with our newscast. I know there was some exchange of gunfire. Now you're reporting that there is one police officer, there's one suspect, rather, who may not be who may be neutralized, as law enforcement sources are saying right now. So this is really an active scene just beyond that SUV, these two black vehicles. The red and blue lights flashing, that is the Bayview Cemetery. That is where a search is underway. Right now, there are no officers with guns drawn. When my photographer, Lee Harrington, arrived about 30 minutes to an hour ago, there were officers approaching the cemetery with caution, with their handguns drawn. But at this point, there doesn't appear to be an active threat here at Bayview Cemetery. But the big thing is we're trying to confirm with law enforcement here and with our sources exactly what kind of interaction here at the cemetery led to the shooting of a Jersey City police officer and then to a shootout about 2 miles away. David?
Darla, just to give you an update from what we're getting here at the assignment desk, they're telling us that this does not appear to have any nexus to terrorism, but it does appear to have started as some form of criminal activity. And again, you can see that there is a real big response. The latest report is that at least one suspect, possibly two, appear, and this is the language they're using, is neutralized. We're not sure what that means exactly, but that means no longer a threat, clearly. They're sending a robot into that bodega as a precaution to see if they have the situation indeed under control. And earlier we learned that there was at least one victim from the bodega that was treated and was able to get out and talk to police, and that person told them that there were as many as 4 other people inside the bodega at the time of the shooting occurred, and that at the time he did not, or she did not know the conditions or the whereabouts are unknown of any of the people that were inside. All of this occurring at around 12:30. We believe it somehow started at Bayview Cemetery. An officer shot, hit in the shoulder, now at Jersey City Medical Center. You see the officers there, heavily armed, responding, but not in the mode that you might fear if it was an ongoing kind of a confrontation. But it's still too early to determine exactly what we're dealing with here or the stage of this investigation. But indeed, if one suspect is in custody or at least neutralized, and possibly 2, as I said, there may be more than one person involved in this, that is a good sign. And with the robot going in to make sure that the officers are safe and that the situation is under control, we will be learning much more at any moment. We are sure of that. In the meantime, schools in the area are locked down. I hear Darla Miles asking for us to go back. Darla, let's go right back to you. What do you have?
Well, David, I wanted to address one thing that you just outlined. You said criminal activity, and I really want to give our viewers some perspective of what that criminal activity could be. If you're talking about plainclothes officers, this could potentially be some type of task force, some kind of anti-crime unit. This could have been a warrant squad. This could have been plainclothes officers witnessing perhaps a crime taking place. So you talk about criminal activity. Obviously, there was no robbery or things going on inside the cemetery. But again, we want to know if the suspects were under surveillance by Jersey City plainclothes officers, or in fact some anti-crime officers saw a crime taking place. So that's one thing we really want to sort out here when we talk about criminal activity. So I wanted to make sure our viewers had a little bit more of a perspective on that since you added that. David?
That's a great point. Obviously, there's still so much not known exactly. We're not even sure if it did, in fact, start in the cemetery. That's the initial reporting we're getting right now. But that was certainly the examples you gave might explain how a confrontation might occur there and then escalate into what you see here, a full response from local, county, and state, along with New York City offering its aid for the mayor and through the ESU units to this response of this active shooter investigation. Again, we are being told at least one suspect, possibly 2, appear to be neutralized. That was occurring inside a bodega where at least one gunman had barricaded his or herself during after the confrontation with the police officer. That officer being treated right now in Jersey City Medical Center, PBA, sending out tweets asking for prayers, not only for that officer, but for all the officers who have put their lives at risk to bring safety back to this area. Let's check in again with Tony Yates and see what she has from that location. Tony, any updates?
Yes, indeed, David. I'm not standing in front of the camera because there's so much activity happening where we are here on JFK Boulevard and Grant Avenue. You see some of those officers from ESU. They're probably waiting for their orders at this point, but some of those officers went up Grant Avenue and down. They made a right on Bergen Avenue. We're told that we're a few blocks away from where that bodega is, and as you're reporting that they have got those suspects neutralized, hospitalized, and they're checking the bodega to make sure that it is all clear. They are still sending officers to that area to make sure that nothing else is happening in or around that bodega. We haven't heard any reports any longer of any shots being fired. The scene has gotten a lot more calmer, although we still see officers coming from the region, really. I mean, these agencies have come together and they have worked seamlessly in securing this area, making sure it's safe, making sure that some of the areas that they need to cordon off for evidence, searching, and for making sure that there's no one else out there who's injured. They have kind of taken control of this whole area to make sure it is as safe as possible. Again, we believe we're a few blocks away from the bodega. We're also a few blocks away from where that initial shooting took place. Everything is calmed down at this point. They're letting some traffic come through, and we're seeing more foot traffic happening also in this area. But whenever somebody comes, whenever these officers come and they've got their long guns and they're in heavy riot gear, they're heading up Grant Avenue, making a right on Bergen, possibly heading down to where that bodega is.
All right, thank you, Tony. We want to let you know that the president has been briefed on the shooting in Jersey City and continues to monitor the situation. We have video that we had from earlier that just gives you a sense of the sound of some of this shooting. Now, I want to warn you that the image you'll see is of an officer who is not responding in any kind of an urgent manner, because we presume that this officer was a distance away, probably at a staging area. But the sound, that's what we want you to focus in on. Why don't we play that for you?
Oh, that big.
Dramatic sound indeed of the shooting in Jersey City that left at least one police officer injured. At this point, we're told with the shoulder injuries. You can imagine this is a big concern for parents who have children in the school districts of Jersey City. The Board of Ed president telling us that all 43 schools are on lockdown, and they're asking that the parents don't call the police for updates. They're getting inundated right now, that the children are in the schools, are safe, they're in a protected area, they're following the protocol for this kind of a situation. And as we say that, of course, as we mentioned, the president has also been updated and is following the very latest situations, as well as the governor of New York and New Jersey on top of this story. Again, we mentioned the mayor, Bill de Blasio, offering his support. He's saying that he's closely monitoring the ongoing situation and stands ready to assist in any way possibly. Right now, much of the attention is focused on a bodega where we believe that at least one suspect, if not more, have been neutralized. The question is, what happened? Where are they? What is going on? As they try to determine what they're dealing with, they have a robot that they often use in these barricade situations, and they often use in negotiations, and you've seen them often with bomb squads as well, that I'm told is being deployed, and they're going to take their time with this. So this may be some time before we really get a lot of the answers that we're all seeking. But that vehicle, that armored vehicle, remotely controlled, will go into that bodega, then will somehow determine if it is safe for officers to enter and then examine the situation. So I just saw Tony a moment ago. Let's go back to her. She's at the scene. Tony.
Yeah, things have calmed down a lot here. There is still, of course, a very huge police presence. We see state police in the air. That's the only helicopter we see at this point. You see the firefighters' engines up the street. They arrived shortly before we did, and we were headed up Claremont Avenue. We were immediately turned around as they were, because we were told that the active shooting was still going on, and at that point, David, it had not been secure. As we've been standing out here for the past hour or so, we've seen heavy equipment. We've seen hundreds of law enforcement officers from across the region and state police come to the aid of Jersey City Police to try to secure this area. Here we are nearly an hour later, and people are starting to come come out of their homes, starting to come out of the stores to look and see what's going on. There's some traffic still happening in this area, but if you go further down JFK Boulevard, you might see some flashing lights down there. We believe that might be close to where that cemetery is. They still have that area of JFK Boulevard cordoned off, probably at this point looking for evidence, trying to secure that scene, make sure it's okay. There are literally hundreds of officers here, heavily armed at this point, probably still trying to make sure that the area around that bodega is safe. We are probably, we're told, about 3 blocks away from that scene, but we have seen several dozen police officers heading in that direction. We've seen the SWAT teams also head in that direction and down the street to where the initial shooting may have taken place. Since we've been here, though, we have not heard any shots fired. We were warned, though, when we came on the scene to be careful because there was a person going from roof to roof shooting, and as police were getting those reports, of course, they were trying to get to those areas that people were reporting that they heard shots fired. And so they were telling people as they were walking down the street literally to be careful, get to your home as quickly as possible because we don't know where this person is. So this is going to be active out here for quite a long time. Again, the good news is we have not heard any more reports of shots being fired, and the update that you have given us that at least 2 suspects have been neutralized. So we will continue to stay out here and hopefully get an update from police as soon as possible.
Thank you, Tony. Let's take you over to the Jersey City Medical Center where we have a live camera. An officer, Jersey City police officer, is now being treated at this hospital after being shot in this incident. We're told the officer was shot in the shoulder. We don't have any further information in terms of that officer's condition. The PBA sending out a tweet asking for prayers and support for this officer and for anyone that was in the line of fire during this event. We also just got a statement from the Attorney General Gerber Graywall. In this statement, he writes, "The situation in Jersey City remains fluid, and we are working closely with our local, county, state, and federal prosecutors to ensure the safety of everyone involved. Please keep the officers of the Jersey City Police Department in your thoughts and prayers as they work to resolve the situation. We remain, as always, extraordinarily grateful for their service and their sacrifice." One of those officers in that hospital right now, his or her condition unknown at this time. All we're being told, wounded possibly in the shoulder by gunfire that occurred during a confrontation, again, that we believe started at around 12:30 at the Bayview Cemetery in Jersey City. At some point, that gunman or there may have been more than one, then left that scene and then fled to a bodega where they were barricaded. Now, we don't know for sure, but at least one suspect, we're told, possibly 2, appear to be neutralized inside that bodega. And right now, as we speak, a remote robot is going to make its way into the bodega to check on those that may still be inside it. There was at least one victim from that bodega, we were told earlier, that was treated and was able to talk to police and kind of give them the information they needed to understand what was happening inside that store. That person told them there were as many as 4 other people inside the bodega at the time the shooting occurred. Unfortunately, we don't know anything about their conditions or their situation or what was behind them being in there, or if this was just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. The one thing that we have been told, though, is that this is not tied to terrorism in any way. It appears to have started as some kind of criminal activity. Now, just getting in this from our assignment desk. They're being told the suspects are inside the J.C. Kosher Supermarket. This is on 223 Martin Luther King Drive. It's not a bodega. It's actually a Jewish supermarket. So as I said earlier in our reporting of all of this, much of this information changes as it comes into us, and we learn more details on what exactly we're dealing with and some of the facts of the case. And please, we ask that you stay with us and understand that. But this is the information as they give it to us, and sometimes it's flawed at the very beginning. But one person is believed to have been inside that supermarket at the time it was injured. So that is something to be considering. Up to 4 people were inside, and police are attempting to locate them. Okay, police are checking out the U-Haul that the suspects are believed to have jumped out of, which apparently must be tied in some way to this story. I'm not sure where that U-Haul came from in all the telling. Again, this has just been handed to me. Very fluid story. Tony Yates, I know you're on the scene. You've been listening to this story as it unfolds and the many twists and turns of it. But what do you make of this so far? If there is at least... There was a U-Haul now that they appeared to have come. It makes you wonder. I'm sorry, Darla Miles, I'd like to check in with you. Darla, we were talking earlier about the potential reasons for criminal activity. When you add the word U-Haul in there, it adds another dimension to it, doesn't it?
It does, and as you just saw, I was on the phone checking with one of my sources. I'm trying to get more information about that U-Haul, whether or not those suspects fled Bayview Cemetery in that U-Haul. Just want to point your attention, there is going to be a lot of police activity surrounding that U-Haul and searching it, obviously, when it leaves the scene of an officer who was shot here at Bayview Cemetery. Just to recap again, David, for any of our viewers who may be just joining us right now, we do know there was an initial interaction with Jersey City police officers near or in the Bayview Cemetery here at Garfield Avenue and Chapel Avenue. From that scene, 8 minutes later, about 2 miles away, there was then an exchange of gunfire and reports of a suspect barricaded where Tony Yates is at Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and Bayview Avenue. Right here behind me, you can see where the cemetery, the streets leading to the cemetery here on Garfield Avenue are completely blocked off. We are told that there is some type of search for evidence going on in this cemetery. Now, again, back to what you initially said, David, we want to know what type of criminal or activity may have led to this shooting. Again, sources are telling me that these were plainclothes Jersey City officers, so they could have been in a specialized unit, possibly surveilling any suspects in advance, or there's a possibility they may have witnessed criminal activity. Those are all the details we are still waiting to get right now from the Jersey City Police Department. As you mentioned, a number of agencies responding to this scene, because when you have an active shooter investigation and 2 scenes involved, you definitely want to make sure that you secure all of the evidence, you secure all of the witnesses. You have technically about a mile, 1.9 miles of evidence, and possibly between the Bayview Cemetery scene and the bodega scene, and anybody who may have witnessed the suspects fleeing the cemetery over to the halal kosher supermarket. So that is one reason why the swath and the net has been cast so widely, so that investigators can make sure they preserve any type of evidence and any type of witnesses from this initial shooting scene to the bodega, where there is an interaction and a standoff right now with law enforcement officers. On this side of Danforth and Garfield and Chapel on Bayview Cemetery, as you can see, traffic is moving because the majority of the police activity and the barricaded streets are beyond the SUV in the street that you see right now, because that, again, was the route that the suspects took from the cemetery interaction to the supermarket on MLK Boulevard. So we want to know, obviously, what led to this initial interaction with law enforcement officers. We want to know how many suspects, again, we're getting a number of reports. We want to know how many officers were involved in this particular shooting. We do know that at least it's confirmed that 1 officer was shot in the shoulder. But at this point, now that those 2 suspects, as Tony mentioned, have been neutralized inside of that supermarket, and they know that that U-Haul is related to the suspects that left this initial shooting scene going up to the bodega, there will be of particular interest to law enforcement officers to make sure they search that U-Haul for evidence to find out, again, what led to this entire bevy of activity this afternoon. David?
And Dolly, the other thing, in addition to all of this, is we're concerned now if there were people inside that supermarket that may have been injured in all of this, possibly workers, possibly consumers, shoppers at the time, just caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. We don't know for sure. All we're being told right now is that at least 1 suspect appears to have been neutralized inside that supermarket, and again, maybe 2. It's not even confirmed that a second one was neutralized. The most that they can offer us at that point is that, and the most they can offer us also is that at least 1 Jersey City police officer has been shot. It could be more. We don't know. It is a fluid situation, and we ask for your patience and understanding as we try to get you the facts as soon as they come in and bring them to you. The 1 Jersey City police officer we do know about, again, shot in the shoulder, being treated at Jersey City Medical Center as we speak. Now, again, police are telling us this all appears to have started as criminal activity. No nexus to terrorism, but the question then goes, what was that criminal activity? More questions now than we have answers for at this point. But as we speak, what is known as a Barricade, it's an armored vehicle, is moving toward, or if not yet engaged, looking to get inside that supermarket to really assess firsthand what the situation is. They know this much. Someone was in that supermarket shooting at police. Police, no word yet if they fired back at them. We don't know what kind of an exchange of gunfire occurred. We do know from the reports, though, that there was someone with a gun shooting out of that supermarket, and that caused that barricaded situation. At this point, though, somehow that situation appears to be neutralized. We've not gotten any reports of additional shots fired out of that supermarket. So we're waiting to hear anxiously what happened inside and what is the condition, if anything, of the people who are inside that may have been caught in the crossfire of this event that appears to have started at 12:30. Again, at the Bayview Cemetery, from the information that we're being told. It started with an officer getting shot, and then there appeared to be others, a gunman who fled to the scene of this supermarket to hold up, possibly to try and get out of, maybe there were. Again, live pictures of the scene. Much of the area now in lockdown, particularly around this supermarket. The supermarket is one that is at the center of all of this activity right now at 223 Martin Luther King Driveway. It's the JC Kosher Supermarket that we're being told. Now, you'll see a lot of people walking casually and comfortably because our cameras are far from much of the area of high concern right now for safety reasons. And obviously, a lot of the people you're seeing are in a safe zone that has been designated by the police and by the state officials who are monitoring this very situation. Again, not sure why this happened, except that a criminal activity is what we're being told is being behind the initial aspect of the shooting. But for some time, beginning at 12:30 at the very least, there was a person with a gun that was barricaded and in a confrontation. We have video, we have sound of the gunshots that were being fired at the time. Very dramatic, very frightening, especially for parents who have children in the school system. As a result of the concerns, out of just an abundance of caution, all the schools were put on lockdown, regardless of the fact that none of this was really focused at a school. They did it just to be on the safe side, keep children off the streets, and have them on lockdown mode until they can deem it safe. We haven't heard yet when that lockdown will be lifted. We'll be still waiting to hear more information on that. Now, we're learning also, as you can imagine, we've been telling you about New York City helping with ESU and state police, and now Jersey City ATF agents are on the scene as well following this shooting. And, of course, additional ATF resources will be available to any of the first responders that are there right now. We have a team of reporters who have been covering this story for us. Tony Yates has been on the ground, Darla Miles also by the cemetery. Two basic locations we're dealing with. One at that cemetery. Again, why did it start? What happened? Then the movement from that cemetery over to the supermarket on Martin Luther King Drive. Why did they go in there? Was it just a quick getaway? Was there something else occurring? Were they meeting with other people? Was it just one? Was it more than one person? Tony Yates, I want to bring you back in and let's talk a little bit more what we're at right now with this.
Good.
Well, David, things have calmed down here on JFK Boulevard. You can still see, though, there are police officers here on the corner. As long as, 5 minutes ago, they weren't letting people walk up Grant Avenue, but now clearly people are walking up Grant Avenue. We are about a couple of blocks away from that store where that suspect was barricaded inside. There was a lot of activity in this area, though, because we are right down the street from the cemetery as well, where that one officer was shot. Now people are coming out. We don't know if the schools are still in lockdown. We haven't seen more students students coming out at this point. We do know that people are now coming out of their homes, coming out of the stores. Earlier, though, we did see kids who looked like they were school age with backpacks on their back walking in the opposite direction down JFK Boulevard, right past Broadman Parkway. They still have that area of JFK cordoned off. Garfield police officer just went down that way. There's still Bloomfield police here. The fire department is trying to control as much traffic as possible. There is not a whole lot of traffic in this area right now because we still do, as you can see, have police officers headed up towards that store where all of this unfolded, trying to secure the scene, of course, trying to get the evidence that they're going to need. The one thing that we have seen out here is these agencies who have come to respond, working seamlessly, covering all of these areas. And there were so many areas earlier because there were reports of an active shooter around. And as they got those reports, they had to fan out to those areas to make sure that the people were safe. And if they spotted that active shooter, to try to neutralize him. As you've said, as you've reported, we hear that 2 suspects have been neutralized at this point. We don't know exactly what that means, but we do know that we have not heard of any more shots being fired. But as you can see, we still have officers getting in gear and heading up to the direction of that store. They have not allowed us to get up to that area at this point. So once we get the go-ahead, we're going to try to get closer so we can see the activity going on there, David.
All right, Tony, thank you so very much. Bill Ritter is going to be joining me right now. We're going to be start transitioning and getting ready for our newscast as we begin to pull this story together. Bill, I know you've been watching this, all of this. And Bill, stay with me for just a second. I want to go to Darla Miles first and then bring you in. Darla?
David, as you've been reporting all afternoon, the surrounding schools in this area were obviously put on lockdown when you have an active shooter situation like that. I have an 8th grader here, Zion Mendez, from PS 120 MLK school, where he was on lockdown and recently came home. He actually heard gunfire at that school. Zion, let's start from the beginning. You were in your 3rd period math class, correct? Yes. And walk me through what happened.
I heard gunfire, like boom, boom, boom.
Before that?
And before that, I was at lunch.
So you were at lunch, and then what happened? You heard that the school was going to go on lockdown, right? So walk me through that from the beginning.
And when they said we're gonna go on lockdown, kids, we stayed in our rooms. We stayed in, like, in the room of math class, and I just stayed in my classroom, and I was very nervous, and I heard like very loud gunfire, and my friends were like, they were shocked and they were scared, and I was like by my desk, and I was like, can I call my mom? I was very shocked, and they said after all this is secure. And then I was waiting, and then when they said everyone get up from your desk, just sit at your desk, I called my mom and I said, Mom, can you pick me up? And then she picked me up.
When you left your school, did you see police officers in the front, on the side? Where did you see police activity at your school?
I saw like police activity like around by MLK, between MLK and Ocean.
Okay. When you heard the gunshots, could you determine if they were nearby or at your school?
They were like nearby.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so when you went on lockdown, was that something that went over the loudspeaker? How does that work?
It was like, my principal was like, teachers and staff were going on lockdown. And when he said that, all of us just sat, like, all of us just put in like a tuck-in row, like a tuck. And I was nervous, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I was just very nervous, and then I heard gunfire, boom, boom, boom. And then after that, we just like put our heads over our like hands over our head, and then we just like wait until everything was secure. And then when everything was secure, I saw cops, like cop cars, like driving very fast, and yeah. When
you heard those gunshots inside of your school, how did the entire class react? Were they screaming? Were they quiet? How did that?
They were like very scared and very paranoid. And
did anyone, react to the gunfire? Or were you guys just quiet?
Yeah, we were just quiet, and then one of my friends was crying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you afraid to even leave the school and go to your parents?
My mom was like in front of the desk, in front of like the office, and she said, parent of Zion Mendez, come downstairs, and I just went downstairs, and my mom just dropped me off at my home.
Were you the only student who left class?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how long were you in that lockdown position in your classroom?
For like minutes, 5 minutes, so like 5 to 7 minutes, like a good long 7 minutes, and we were just staying there with our hands covering our head, and I was just very nervous because, like, I didn't know what to do. I just heard gunshots, and then the principal said, we're going on a lockdown drill, and then after that, I just saw cops, like, with their cars, like, going really fast. And then they said they caught one suspect by the church, by Montgomery Church. They caught one suspect.
And you got out of there?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry that you went through that, young man. Do you know if there's still students in the school right now?
I think they're all still in lockdown. Yes.
So how does it work? How were you able to leave a lockdown situation in the school? The other students are there?
They said the parent of Aya Mendez come downstairs, and then I went downstairs because my mom said, I want to get my son out of here right now, out of this situation. So my mom got me out of the school, and then we just ran. We drove home. Like, my house is like a couple of blocks away from here, and I was very nervous, very scared. And, like, my mom said, I want my son right now. And then the principal said, all right, the parent of Aya Mendez, come downstairs.
Okay. Last question. I know you've been through active shooter drills in your classroom before. Was this the first time you've actually been involved in a real live active shooter situation?
Yes, first time. And it's like really emotional because, like, I never ever been through this before, and I was crying inside my school because I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to do anymore. I just got very paranoid and very scared.
Okay. Thank you, Zion. Thank you very much. So you're hearing directly from an 8th grader inside one of the nearby schools that was on lockdown, listening at the gunfire while hunkered down inside of his classroom. Clearly very traumatic for this 8th grader and for the other students inside of that school right now. Again, this is developing. Zion, if I can ask you, sweetheart, just to come over here. I just want to give our viewers another look at the scene. This is Bayview Cemetery. You can see it's blocked off. This is Garfield and Chapel Avenue. Again, this is where the initial interaction with law enforcement officers took place. This happened around 12:30 this afternoon. We know that there was a shooting of a Jersey City police officer inside of the cemetery, shot in the shoulder. So at least one officer. It was a result of some type of criminal activity. We're trying to ascertain whether or not this was surveillance of a particular suspect or suspects, or if some perhaps plainclothes officers witnessed some type of criminal activity and there was a foot chase inside of the cemetery. So right now we will obviously see more students coming from school. One school is dismissed. We will be checking in with the Jersey City School District to find out exactly what the status is of those students are, but clearly a very emotional story from an 8th grader inside the school who had to hunker down on lockdown inside of his classroom as he heard gunshots outside. David, Bill?
Thank you, Darla. We appreciate that. Frightening kind of a situation for children, for parents, anyone in the community, no question. We're bringing in our anchor, Bill Ritter, right now. I know you've been following the story and getting our sources in terms of finding out what the latest information. Have you picked up anything from your...
You know, one of the things that it just strikes me, and I'm sure it has you, although we haven't talked about it because you've been on the air, but what a difficult situation for these police officers in Jersey City.
No question.
There may be wounded people inside. The perps are inside, it looks like, at least one of them, maybe two, and they are not in yet. So they may have wounded civilians there, and they're not moving in, and how frustrating it must be for them, because they're afraid that these guys may be still alive and
knowing that at least one officer is down.
Right, at least one. And in fact, you know, you pointed it out, David, when you said this, Governor Murphy's statement, especially with the officers shot during this standoff, he said plural. And I don't think the governor would do that accidentally. And we don't have that confirmed, but the governor certainly said that. But again, it's still a very active situation. And the fact that these police officers have not moved in yet says just waves and waves of information about this situation.
Why don't we go to Tony Yates right now, Bill, and get the very latest. Tony.
Yeah, it's still kind of calm over here, although there are fire department vehicles moved up closer to where we are. They're now not allowing vehicles to go up Grant Avenue. We haven't seen any more officers go up in that direction. We do know there are a couple of schools in this area. We have not seen any other school kids come out of any of these schools. There were some adults walking up the street, and they were walking at a fast pace. We thought that maybe they were were parents going to get their children or going to the school to be there with them, but they apparently had just gotten off a bus. They have to stop and tell officers where they're going, and the officers tell them where they can go and where they can't go at this point. We haven't seen any of the officers who went up Grand Avenue, who were headed towards that store, come back yet. They still have this area quite cordoned off as far as traffic is concerned. In fact, we don't see any more traffic in this area. They have kind of, as you can see, taken over Grant Avenue here along JFK Boulevard. We are a couple of blocks, though, away from that scene where they're checking out the store to make sure it is still safe. People are walking around now. They're coming to us, asking us, do we know what was going on? We tell them what we can. Some of these people are just coming out of their homes, just getting aware of the scene at this point. We have not been able to get to any police officers at this early point to talk to us and tell us what they know thus far. They still, have these units coming in. That was another fire truck that came through to help block off some of the streets as they prepare to gather the evidence that they can find. So that's the latest right now. We're going to try to get much closer to where all of the activity is concerned as far as we can go at this point, so we can maybe get some clarity, some more pictures of exactly what these officers are dealing with. David?
I'll take it, Tony. Thanks. And you keep us posted. There are not a lot of cops, as I understand it, Tony, where you are. They're the ones that are in the area, in the cordoned off zone where we're not allowed, behind that scene. And you've seen, while David was on, out of that sheriff's van, a lot of heavily armed officers, SWAT team officers with long guns, leaving there. They came back, they went inside, they came back and outside again and walked towards that delicatessen. Not really, it's a kosher supermarket, JC Kosher Supermarket. This is this whole active shooter thing, which started at about 12:30 at the Bayview Cemetery, about a mile away. Shots fired there, and that's where it started. And we want to play this for you. This happened about 2.5 hours ago. Take a listen to this. We don't know exactly who was firing. It sounded like there was some sort of a shootout there, but that was certainly the sound, it appeared to me, and I'm a novice at this. Maybe Darla Miles, who covers the police force a lot and is certainly more expert at this than I am. Darla, if you can hear me, did you hear that sound? And it sounded like semi-automatic fire. Darla, did you hear that?
You tell me, I can hear. Can you hear me, Dan? Can you hear me, Bill?
I do. Did you hear what?
Yeah, I can hear it, but let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I can hear you. Tell me where that broadcast, do you know where the source of that broadcastify audio? If it was here at the cemetery or was it at the bodega?
I am being told it was near the cemetery, but my instinct was that it was near the bodega. And it's not a bodega, it's a kosher supermarket, but it was near the supermarket. But I'm being told by the people in this room here that this was at the cemetery, which would change things dramatically.
Okay, thank you. I have to apologize.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does, and I have to apologize because obviously it's noisy out here. Obviously,
yeah.
It did definitely sound like rapid fire. Okay, I'm not an ATF firearms expert, but it was definitely rapid fire. That could indicate, as you mentioned, a rapid fire type of hand weapon, but it also could just be multiple shots fired at one time. So I definitely don't want to be an armchair
good point.
Firearms expert.
Right, we don't know who was also
firing. Yeah, so it was rapid fire.
We don't know who was firing. I brought up the point.
Police.
I brought up the point a couple minutes ago that this must be an enormously emotional and painful conundrum for the police, because we do know there may be wounded people there if our reports are accurate that we've gotten from the scene, from police sources, and that they can't go in there yet, or they haven't gone in there, must be very difficult.
So what we're hearing at this point, Bill, from Josh Einiger, who's been in touch with the Jersey City PBA, they're now confirming several officers possibly shot in this incident, which obviously can lend itself to the massive response going on at both of these scenes right now. And again, we don't know the level of a threat these suspects are. You could only determine, you know, by the lengthy standoff and by the two scenes, they obviously are at the top, you know, of criminal activity, if you want to say it like that, because, you know, this is not what you typically see with, like, perhaps a drug suspect or a gang suspect. This type of, not just, you have the interaction and then you have the standoff for them, you know, firing back at police officers. That is something we've not seen in years, to be honest with you, Bill. We haven't seen suspects, you know, really in a gun battle, like an Old West gun battle, going back and forth with law enforcement officers. So that really, again, creates the question, what was this criminal activity that led to the initial shooting here near the cemetery and then to the big standoff at the supermarket on MLK where Tony is. And again, this shooting happened inside of the cemetery. So, you know, you can think about, well, were they in a cemetery? Did the criminal activity originate inside of that cemetery? Or was there a foot chase to the cemetery, which led to the shooting of the Jersey City police officer and then them fleeing to the bodega, presumably in the U-Haul that is parked in front of the bodega, right? I mean, I keep saying bodega. You have to forgive me, Bill, because that's what we've been reporting all morning.
Sure.
And so it's just kind of on the tip of my tongue.
No, it's a JC kosher supermarket.
So that's what we know.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting is that we don't know what sparked this. Were these cops in an undercover capacity? You raised this earlier in your talking to David. We don't know what the police were doing there. Were they supposedly in some sort of deal with the suspects? We just don't know, and everything then, you know, went to heck in a handbasket. We don't know that information, and we're not going to speculate, but we did.
And let me tell you.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Bill, so I did have one source tell me that the officers here involved were plainclothes officers, right? So that could mean a specialized unit. It could be narcotics. It could be anti-crime. We don't know. And the big question is, was this like a spontaneous situation where criminal activity was witnessed and it led to this interaction, or if these were suspects under surveillance, which led to officers moving in. So we really want to hear, obviously, from Jersey City police officers, because it's not that we want to know. We want to be able to tell our viewers what's going on. You have hundreds, thousands of people here in this neighborhood affected and impacted by this shooting. They've heard gunshots. Their children have been in schools, locked down. You just heard from Zion Mendez, who was terrified and called his mother when he was huddling under a desk hearing gunfire. So we want to be able to tell our viewers who are impacted in this neighborhood exactly what is going on. So as you mentioned, we're trying to get as much information as we can until we hear what the official word is from law enforcement, because we want to bring it to all of our viewers here who are impacted by this and who are still terrified because they don't really know exactly what happened this afternoon.
And if there were a lot of undercover officers or plainclothes officers involved in this, you can imagine how difficult a situation that is when you have plainclothes people not in uniform with guns on them, and what opportunities for mishaps and everything else that could cause these heavily armed officers who are on a high degree of adrenaline.
Well, you know, when you have a plainclothes officer, Bill, these are officers who have obviously risen to the top of the ranks of their law enforcement department. They're not just out of the academy. They have some experience under their belt. You would assume that they have some type of specialized training in whatever department that they are working in, whichever kind of unit they're working in. So you have to, you know, assume that these law enforcement officers are really specialized in their training. There's lots of training that goes on with each of these individualized units in any law enforcement agency. So, and this is what they deal with every day. For example, if you have a warrant squad, they could be in plain clothes, and they're also, you know, on alert for any potential gunfire. So we have to assume if these were plainclothes officers, Bill, these were, you know, highly trained officers with some time under their belt, who would have been trained to deal with a situation that could escalate as quickly as this one
That's
did.
a very good point, and point well taken. Darla Miles, near the cemetery where it all started. Darla, I'm going to let you go for a second. You know, keep us posted. If you need to get back, let us know right away, and we'll come back to you. Tony Yates is talking to someone who is at the scene. Tony, who's your guest right now?
Okay, we are at Bergen and Grant Avenue, and I just came up to this area. This is where the police officers were heading down the street. I just met Robert. Robert is a contractor who was working here on Grant Avenue. He was actually around, you say, when the shots were fired. Tell me where you were, what you were doing, and what happened.
We were working right here on the right in the middle of the block, and we heard like firecrackers, pop, 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 pop. And then my friend Martinez came out. He said, "No, those are gunshots." So we ran out to the balcony, which is a gated, enclosed, safe area. So we looked, and then we saw all these cops running from the gunfire. We heard more. Pop, pop. We heard like automatic weapons.
Automatic weapons,
yes,
you heard.
It sounded like automatic, multiple shots.
Okay, and then what were the police saying at this point? Were they trying to move?
The police were just moving everybody back, and they were running, and they were blocking the road. There were just more policemen coming in, more and more as we looked.
And so you guys stayed in the place?
In the area. We didn't even come out. We were afraid, and people were asking us if they could come into our enclosed gate. I said, no, we can't because we're under construction here. God forbid, you know. But close to the neighbors, and the neighbors had their door open. They asked them to come in, but they said, no, you don't want to let us in. But anyway, they just told them, you got to go up Bergen Avenue, which is safe.
Any point did you hear police officers or see police officers trying to return fire at this point?
No, but we did hear the automatic weapons. We don't know if it was the police or the the people shooting at the police.
And did you see anybody other than police officers running away, going in any direction?
Only pedestrians, people running away from the obvious gunshots, you know. So.
Had you ever experienced anything like this before?
First time. First time was scary. So, I mean, we were inside, we were shaking. But then we were peeking out the window. But then I was watching you guys on my app, and finally, then we said it was safe to come out. But then we knew that they were held up somewhere in Martin Luther King at some store. Right.
This happened around noon. You've been here for several hours now. What's it been like watching this unfold?
Yeah. We just actually got back to the site from lunch. And my friend Martinez was supposed to go to the corner store, which I think they might have passed with the gunshots to get a soda, but he said, no, I'll have water. And that's right after that, about 12:30, 12:45 is when we heard all the commotion.
Right. And at some point, you were able to pull out your phone to record the gunshots at this point.
Yes, I did. And it was sounded like firecrackers, like I said. But it was multiple gunshots, and it sounded like automatic weapons. Yes.
Robert, I am so glad you're safe. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us. Again, police officers have been heading down Bergen Avenue. We believe that store is much farther down, several blocks away. They're stopping the crowd at this point. They're not allowing anybody to go down that way. And also down JFK Boulevard. We believe that's where the cemetery is, just a few blocks away. Of course, officers will be busy trying to secure these areas, of course, to gather the evidence they need to figure out exactly what happened out here, Bill.
And Tony, I just want to make this clear. You have not heard any shots fired in quite a while, correct?
We have not heard shots fired, but when we arrived on the scene not long after this began to unfold, firefighters actually moved us back as we came close to this scene here near Bergen Avenue. They said, you have to go back. We have reports that there is someone, an active shooter, going from roof to roof. He's still firing. They're moving us back. We need to move you guys back as well. We at no point heard any of those shots being fired, and I believe it's only because we were several blocks away from where it was happening, because we were in the area when they were still searching for that active shooter.
Yeah, good point. Okay, we still don't know why they're not going in and trying to assess the area with a robot or with their own men and women in the police department. But that's one of the conundrums they're having, and we're waiting for that to happen. You talked about how the roads are closed, Tony. I just want to say that exit 14B and the Newark Bay extension of the New Jersey Turnpike, they have been closed to divert traffic flow from the area of the active shooter investigation and scene in Jersey City, so it's causing problems also. Mayor Stephen Fulop of Jersey City tweeted this out moments ago. We have this on a screen if we can show that. For parents, we still have an active scene, but all the schools in the area are secure and all children are accounted for. We will provide more information later, and of course we know that the police have asked the schools not to tell parents not to call the police department when they call the schools. Speaking of the schools, we have the president of the Jersey City School District, is that right? Board of Education.
Yeah, Jersey School Board, yeah.
School Board. And if I could have your name, I'm so sorry, sir.
Yeah, Sudan Thomas.
Sudan Thomas. Okay, Sudan. Tell us what's happening. The schools are still, they're secure. Are they still locked down?
Yes, all 43 schools in Jersey City are on lockdown. All of our kids, 30,000 children, 6,000 employees, they're all safe. They're inside the schools. They continue to be under lockdown, and we will make a decision about lifting the lockdown only after law enforcement confirms to us that it's all clear and that the kids can, be let to go home. Now, obviously, we are planning to stagger the dismissal, so we don't want to put 30,000 kids on the street at the same time. So we will be coordinating this with law enforcement to ensure that when the actual dismissal happens, it's after a clear, all clear from the police department, and we will plan for the dismissal in such a way that
very important, Mr. Thomas. This is very important. I want to just repeat this for any parents who are listening here, because there are 43 schools that are affected. That is a lot of kids and a lot of parents and a lot of family members. You will not let them out of this secure situation until all of this situation is over. The police clear the area and they say it is entirely safe. These kids are not going anywhere.
Yes, absolutely. And they're all safe. All of our kids are accounted for, and they're all safe inside our school buildings. We're following the protocol for an active shooter, even though this is not anywhere close to the perimeter of the schools. All of our employees are safe and accounted for, and the district administration is in contact with me, and I'm closely monitoring the situation. And once we receive an all clear from law enforcement, that's when we will issue the all clear for everybody to, get out of the schools.
Right, and I assume...
It's not going to happen anytime soon.
I assume that you have coordinated these active shooter practices and drills with these kids, these young kids, and it's unfortunate, but that's just the reality of life these days, and you have done this before, and these kids are well practiced in this.
Yes, and this is a tough question because, as you rightly pointed out, post 9/11 and Sandy Hook and everything else, for a lot of parents who are hearing out there, I know it's a difficult afternoon, and it's difficult for all of us. But this is, unfortunately, the sad reality of our lives in the United States. And, yes, our kids go through periodic active shooter drills and fire drills. And, our staff are well-trained. And, for a situation like this. But at the same time, I just want to appeal for calm, and I want to reassure all parents out there who are listening to this that our children are safe. They're safe inside the schools, and they are with their teachers, and all of our employees are accounted for, and at this point there is nothing to worry about.
Yeah, that's. I think that's a really great thing to say. Obviously, as a parent, I assume you are. It's very difficult for them not to be worried. What has been the reaction with parents calling the schools?
Well, we have told the parents have received robocalls from the schools, so they are updated on what's going on. We also have sent out emails to the schools, so they know what's going on. And obviously, there's a flood of calls to the school buildings themselves. We're requesting the parents to not call the schools or not show up at the schools, because we want to keep all the driveways active, clear for law enforcement to, drive through if they have to. So we don't want to pile on any kind of pressure onto the streets at this point of time. And so we are asking parents to stay away until we have the all clear from law enforcement.
Okay, Sadan Thomas, the superintendent of the school district, the Board of Education. I'm sorry, School Board, Board of Education. Yeah. I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on again to Eyewitness News and giving us that briefing. Again, all 43 schools locked down, and the kids are safe and secure, and so parents out there, while they are obviously worried and concerned, your kids are safe, and that's the message I think you want to give out tonight.
Absolutely,
All right, Mr. Thomas, good luck to you, and keep us posted, if you would, okay?
Thanks a lot.
All right, thank you very much, and you can see, thank you, sir. You can see one of the things we've posted up there from, looks like Frank Conwell. We are currently on lockdown for extra precaution. This is at PS number 3. We will keep everyone posted. Everyone is safe. We'll notify you when we are cleared for dismissal. This is at 3:23 p.m. on this Tuesday afternoon, when kids are going to be let out of school, if not already, then moments from now. And parents will want to pick up their children. And what parent doesn't want to do that? So for you parents who are obviously concerned about this, you just heard from the Board of Education president, the man in charge, saying your kids are safe, and they fortunately, this is some distance in many of the schools away from this active shooter situation at this JC Kosher Supermarket on Martin Luther King Drive, 223 MLK Drive in the city of Jersey City. It is a Jewish supermarket. One person is believed, one officer shot at about 12:30. It started as a criminal activity in Bayview Cemetery, possibly a local drug deal with plainclothes cops involved. There was open firing, as you heard in the tape we had. Two suspects believed to have fled to the area of the JC supermarket. They jumped out of a U-Haul and entered that market. One person was injured in that exchange of fire. 4 other people were inside the supermarket at the time. Their whereabouts are unknown, but we might believe they may be inside, some of them, a couple of them, and the cops have not yet entered. They are thinking about sending a robot. Why they haven't, we don't know. We want to go to Eyewitness News reporter Tim Fleischer. And Tim, remind me where you are, because we haven't thrown to you yet, but I assume you're in Jersey City there.
I am, Bill. I'm at the Jersey City Medical Center right now, which is heavily controlled at this hour by a number of different police agencies. You can see here that these officers have taken over the entrance that leads back to the emergency room around the back of this building here. These police come from different agencies, not just Jersey City here, but they're being augmented by the Port Authority. They have a number of officers who are stationed in this area, and they could easily come and assist and patrol. There are other officers, we understand, around the backside, no doubt for moral support for those inside the medical center here. Again, you had pointed out just a moment ago that we do know and are aware of one officer being wounded, presumably being treated here at the Jersey City Medical Center. However, in just a short period of time, the New Jersey State PBA has come out with a statement, and it said today is a horrific day. Officers have come under attack, and we have several that are wounded. Now, that's the first officer. Again, this comes from the New Jersey State PBA. They put this message out just a short time ago. There is talk that there might be a briefing here at the medical center sometime this afternoon. We hope perhaps even from the PBA president, who we understand was also going to arrive here. Maybe he perhaps can give us a sense of what we're dealing with, how many wounded officers there could be. We just don't know. Again, in their note, they says there are several wounded. We are aware of only one that was wounded initially. Again, a number of officers here tightly controlling the comings and goings here at the hospital. Again, they're asking people to stay away if you possibly can. Again, as we start to move into the rush hour, no doubt this traffic on this side of Jersey City is going to become flooded with cars, and it's going to be a little impossible. So you may want to think twice about just staying out of the area altogether if you possibly can. That's the situation here at the Jersey City Medical Center. Tim Fleischer, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
All right, Tim, keep us posted there. Have you seen, Tim, really quickly, have you seen anyone else come in that may have been wounded from this that wasn't a cop, just a civilian?
Not within the time that I've been here, nor the time that we've had a photographer here as well. So you're talking at least in the last hour, we have not seen any additional ambulances come in with what may be, someone wounded from the scene.
All right, Tim, I have some very sad news to report, and we have just confirmed into the Eyewitness newsroom that at least one officer, one of the Jersey City police officers who was shot today, is now dead, has been killed in the line of duty in this now tragic and bloody shootout in Jersey City that started 3 hours ago today. A Jersey City police officer has been killed, and our thoughts are with his family and all the members of the Jersey City Police Department. This is from the prosecutor, Hudson County, confirming that one police officer has been fatally shot today in Jersey City. 2 additional officers and 1 civilian have also been hit by gunfire, but they are stable. Avoid the area surrounding MLK and Bayview. Again, let me repeat that. 1 police officer killed, 2 additional cops and 1 civilian have also been hit by gunfire. They are in stable condition, we assume, at the Jersey City Medical Center, where Tim just was in front of. And this is indeed very sad news about this officer and for the entire community. This as the active shooting situation in Jersey City, out front of the JC Kosher supermarket on Martin Luther King Drive, remains active. They have not gone in, as far as we know, at least. I want to go to Darla Miles, who listened to what we just said, and it's so sad, Darla. And just once again, we're reminded that these police officers, men and women, put their lives on the line every single day, every minute they're on the street.
It's awful. Bill. This is obviously not how these officers started their day. They started their day trying to protect the citizens and residents here in Jersey City. We've gotten a lot of information since the last time I spoke with you, Bill. And we do know, again, we have 3 officers who were shot, 1 of them killed. Sources are telling me that these were undercover, plainclothes, narcotics officers, perhaps making an arrest in a drug deal that went bad here in Bayview Cemetery behind me. So this is where those 3 officers were shot, right behind me. You can see you have a block before Bayview Cemetery that's already closed off. These officers are here. If you go 1 block over, that is the entrance to Bayview Cemetery, where obviously now that you have 1 officer who has been killed and 2 others injured, there is going to be an extensive forensic investigation in terms of just looking for any potential evidence, maybe firearms that could have possibly been discarded, and just out of respect for those officers who were struck here. We know that the 1 officer is deceased. A 2nd one was shot in the shoulder. We don't know the extent of the injury of the 3rd officer that was shot, so that is something that we will be looking to hear at the 3:30 news conference that should be starting pretty soon. You have residents in the neighborhood concerned about what's going on. They didn't know what was going on. As we just heard from the president of the Board of Education, all 30,000 students in all Jersey City schools have been on lockdown for the last 3 hours. We spoke with an 8th grader from PS 120, Zion, who told me that he was inside of his classroom. There was a quick announcement across the PA system saying that the school was going on lockdown, and as those students were hunkered over in their desk, they heard gunfire outside. A number of those students started crying and then called their parents to come pick them up from school because they didn't know what was happening. Those students, Zion Mendez in particular, from the 8th grader from 120, he said he saw the response of the police officers here in Jersey City racing to the scene of that gunfire of the supermarket where those suspects were barricaded inside. So again, now that we have confirmed that you have 1 officer here in Jersey City deceased as a result of this drug deal gone bad here at Bayview Cemetery, that heightens the level of this investigation. It's going to heighten how long officers are here. It's going to extend the street closures and delays. Obviously, that's not the most important thing right now, but that is something that residents in this neighborhood need to be mindful of as they are trying to make their way home. We do know that 2 suspects have been neutralized, as we've been reporting all afternoon. So that is something that the neighborhood residents here should know in terms of their level of concern for their safety. This is another police vehicle scanning the scene. You have multiple agencies on the scene. Not only do you have neighboring municipalities like Bayonne here, you also have the ATF on the scene. You have the FBI on the scene. Again, just being dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's with such an expansive crime scene. About a mile, 1.9 miles from here is that supermarket where the shootout took place. In fact, when I arrived on the scene earlier today, I had to walk the perimeter of the cemetery just to get around here. So there are lots of street closures, lots of delays, and definitely the residents in this neighborhood are going to be really upset to know that the narcotics officers who were in their neighborhood protecting them, one of them died in the line of duty this afternoon.
Yes, and I don't like to say that deal gone bad, but it was some kind of drug deal, perhaps an undercover situation. Dar, let me just ask you a quick question, because we just talked to the Board of Education president, and he said that all the schools were still locked down, and yet Zion was talking to you out on the street. It was his school dismissed?
Well, so Zion called his parents. Yeah, so no, it's not dismissed. We asked him about that. Yeah. I asked him exactly how was he able to get out of school and if everyone was on lockdown, but he said he called his mother. His mother showed up at the school and said, I want my child. My child's coming home with me. My child called me. There was an announcement on the PA system, and he said he was allowed to leave while he left his classmates still on lockdown inside of the school, really terrified. I mean, they heard gunshots. 8th graders are listening to gunshots inside of their school. That's just not what any parent or student wants to hear right now.
They don't, but it is unfortunately part of the reality of living in the year 2019. And the good news is it wasn't at a school that this happened. There were many schools around there, and that's why, out of abundance of caution, they shut it down. Darla, keep us posted. We're again waiting for a 3:30 press conference. It's now 3 minutes and 20 seconds late, but obviously we're not going to It's not a big deal when you're out there. They want to get as much information as they can. This is still an active shooting situation. We want to return to Tony Yates. She's near the scene there, being kept a safe distance away, and you can see a lot of first responders out there. Tony, do you know if the press conference, the news conference, and the briefing is going to be where you are?
That press conference is supposed to happen exactly at this spot at Bergen Avenue and Grant Street. We were told at 3:30, but of course realizing now that Jersey City police officers have lost one of their own. Of course, our hearts go out. We're sure that the mayor and other city leaders are dealing with that at this point, but we were told that that press conference will happen right here. We are only a few blocks down the street from where that store and where the shooting occurred. We spoke, in fact, to a contractor who was working here on Grant Street when he heard those shots fired. In fact, several people heard the shots fired. We got here on the scene maybe a half an hour, 45 minutes after it unfolded. When we got here, we were warned to be careful, to look up, to move back, because there was still an active shooter. Now it makes sense, the response that we've seen all afternoon with emergency personnel coming from across the region, with SWAT teams coming from across the region to try to secure these areas, to make sure that there were no more active shooters, because at that point, of course, they didn't know entirely what they were dealing with. There could have been more shooters. There could have been more injured people. There were so many different scenes here in Jersey City that they had to respond to, and they're still securing at this point and trying to make sure it is safe. So again, yeah, we were told that the press conference is going to happen here at 3:30 with the mayor and some other city officials and law enforcement agencies. But of course, they've got more important things ahead of them at this point now, making sure that they have everything secure so that they can come and take the time to spend some time with the press to let us know exactly what they know at this point.
Tony, I want you to listen, and Darla Miles, I'd like you to listen to this as well, because we can now report, and maybe this is why explains that why they haven't rushed that supermarket as quickly as we were asking and wondering about. We can report into the Eyewitness newsroom that there are several people who are dead inside that JC kosher supermarket. We believe there were 4 people, customers or workers, whatever, that were there when the gunman came in and sought shelter there. We are now told that several people in the supermarket are dead. We don't know who they are. We don't know how many there are. We know that there were 1, maybe 2 of the suspects and the gunmen who were in there. Are they part of that group? We just don't know yet, but we are told, according to sources in Jersey City and with law enforcement in the area, multiple people, several people are dead inside that supermarket. And that, perhaps, Darla Miles, if you heard that, and I can bring you back, I hope you heard that, maybe that explains why this conundrum we were wondering about wasn't so much a conundrum. They wanted to make darn sure that that place is secure before they go in. Darla, did you hear me? Oh, okay. Tony, did you hear that? What did you think of that?
Bill, yes, Bill, you know, I can hear you, and it makes a lot of sense, too, because as we were reporting earlier, they did say that at least 1 person was able to make their way out of the store and talk to police, and maybe they gave police that information, which is why we got, you know, this immediate response from all over the area, and even telling people in the area to be careful, to watch out, because there was an active shooter. We also heard that one of those shooters may have gotten out of the store, so with police responding to this area, not knowing what areas were safe, not knowing if the public was in imminent danger, this is the response that we saw. Maybe that person got that information to police, that all of those people, sadly, in that store had their lives taken from them.
Yeah, Darla, I'd like to get you to weigh in on that as well.
I'll send it back to you guys. I can't hear it.
Did you hear what we reported?
Tell me again what you want me to weigh.
Bill?
Yes, I've heard that from 2 different sources.
Okay, yes. There were several people who are dead inside the supermarket. That's what you heard.
Here's the thing, Bill.
Oh, Tony, I'm sorry. I can't. Tony Yates.
Bill, I just wanted to say at the scene here, you can see people there by the ambulance. We believe that they may be family members coming up asking where their family are. We don't know if their family members of the victims. They were coming from that area. They were walking with police. Again, we're here waiting for the press conference to happen. These people are standing with police right now. They've been asking police questions. They're trying to get some information.
Do you want to talk to them briefly, Tony?
We will try to talk to police to find out what's going on.
All right, let me go to Darla. If you talk to those people there and want to give us any information, we'll get back to you. I don't want to throw it to Darla while Tony does some reporting there. Darla, did you hear what we said about those people on the ground inside the supermarket?
Yes, Bill, so here's the deal. We all pretty much heard the same thing at the same time, confirming that the entry team was able to get inside of the supermarket. Remember, there was a robot that also went in to get a lay of the land inside. And so once the robot came out and pretty much determined that the threat was over, you have the entry team going inside of the supermarket to find out exactly what happened. Now, when you're hearing multiple persons deceased inside of that supermarket, you have to think police have already said that 2 suspects have been neutralized. So we have to want to find out from police officers if these 4 persons or these multiple persons who are deceased, you would have to think that they are the suspects included in that number that's being reported, or just knowing that multiple persons have died inside of that supermarket. Then now here, this is another branch of this investigation, right, Bill? So you have suspects who have been neutralized inside. You have other potential workers inside the store, innocent bystanders who were just shopping inside of the store. You have to think about the horror that all of those individuals went through while they were there, just going about their day. And you have gunmen going in and then exchanging gunfire with police officers. And so that adds to this tragedy, Bill. You have multiple persons deceased inside of that supermarket. And now you have 3 Jersey City police officers who were shot. 1 is deceased. So again, this is going to broaden the scope of this investigation. Certainly, they're going to look at to see if there's surveillance video, surveillance cameras inside of that supermarket to find out exactly.
Darla, we're going to go to the news conference right now. It's happening right now.
Cemetery and one at the corner store at Bayview and Martin Luther King. I want to start by just saying that the Jersey City Police Department did a phenomenal job, and it's a very tough day for them. 2 officers were shot. 1 recently gave his life and was pronounced at the Jersey City Medical Center, and the second officer was shot in the shoulder, and he should recover. And then 2 other officers are receiving medical treatment due to shrapnel. We entered the building about 10 minutes ago. There are multiple deceased inside the building, so we'll have more information on that shortly. And again, I want to just say thank you to the Port Authority, the NYPD, all the other agencies that supported us, and of course, a tough day for the Jersey City Police Department.
Any idea how this started? What started?
No, it's still under investigation.
What building?
I don't want to give that information at this point.
Can you tell us about the assailants?
Nope, not at this point. Anything else?
And how many deceased are we talking about inside the code?
We don't know yet. We could confirm there's multiple deceased inside the building, and all the schools in the location are secure. They will be secure for the foreseeable future until we feel comfortable to release all the children. But all the children are accounted for, and we'll provide more information on that shortly. Again, I just want to say it's a tough day for the Jersey City Police Department. You know, these people work tirelessly in very, very tough conditions, and we're going to notify the family. But it is one of our best police officers, and a tough day for the Jersey Police Department for sure.
Just to clarify, how many officers were injured?
2 officers. Okay, thank you very much.
There's no indication of that.
All right, thank you.
A rather quick news conference and briefing, but obviously a weighty and emotional day for the Jersey City Police Department. Those were officials with the department. Multiple dead inside that building. They got in there about 13 minutes ago. They first went in with a robot and inspected it and realized that the place was neutralized, and they walked in. 1 officer in Jersey City was killed, 2 others injured. They are in stable condition. 1 civilian, we're told, was hurt as well. This is just a very sad day for the entire tri-state, and especially for the Jersey City Police Department. We did mention that the New York Police Department is there as well. This is an area with something of a budding Hasidic community. And so some of the officers, we're told, are from Brooklyn, and they are there to just to be helpful, I think, if needed. They have already tweeted the Brooklyn police department has. I'm sorry, the Brooklyn precincts have tweeted saying there's no threat to the community where they are, but they are there for support. We did know that the NYPD ESU unit was also there handling and giving support to Jersey City in this deadly shootout, which began, we're told, as a possible drug deal that went south very quickly. Eyewitness News reporter Jim Dolan is also at the scene with the latest. Jim, you listened to that news conference and you've been listening to our coverage. This is a sad day, but it's also just more than troubling that this erupted between undercover agents and these suspects, who we are assuming they are in there as well, because I think we would have heard if they had been apprehended. Jim?
Right. And let me just stress, Bill, in an extremely residential neighborhood, I just want you to take a look around. The police are trying to control this situation, but there are still a lot of people, a lot of residents out here on the street curious about what happened. Many here, this is a rough and tumble neighborhood. Many here told us they had never heard anything like this before. One person said gunfire is the soundtrack of this neighborhood, but he had never heard anything like this. Josh, let's walk around here. I want to... Yes, sir. This is still a very fluid situation. Officers giving us instruction, which, by the way, we're following. And we just want to show you this robot over here. This is an NYPD unit that they are bringing in closer to the scene. There are a lot of NYPD vehicles, a lot of devices that they have here that they brought in for this. That's what's going on right now. Again, this is a residential neighborhood, Bill. People out here on the street, a lot of people saw this, a lot of people heard this over hours. This was not something that was contained to a short period of time. This unfolded over hours. One woman told me she went back inside, changed her clothes, and came out. It was still going on. So, again, a very fluid situation. Here, the police appear to have that scene under control now, but this is still a chaotic situation outside, still trying to figure out exactly what happened and what went so terribly wrong today. Reporting live from Jersey City, Jim Dolan, Channel 7 Eyewitness News.
Jim, I just want to question you about the word chaotic. It's chaotic in that there are a lot of people there wondering what happened. There's not chaos around you in terms of among the people.
No, good point. It's not that it's not that there is trouble here. A lot of people out on the street that the police are trying to move so that they can get stuff done. Again, they're trying to move this NYPD vehicle in to the scene, and you can, if you look around, Josh, just show them around. There are cars in the way. There are people in the way. It is not chaos in terms of they can't control these people. It's just a lot of people out here that they need to move around so that they can get stuff done. Or, as you aptly said, a chaotic situation. So I got it. All right, Jim Dolan, thanks. Keep us posted, Jim. Yeah. I want to show you some video. You heard our reporters in the field talk about there was some spotting by the police department of one of the gunmen they believed was on the rooftop of the buildings along JFK Boulevard, Martin Luther King Boulevard, Martin Luther King Drive, there at the scene. And we have some scanner video and sound that we'd like you to listen to.
We have movement on the rooftop on Bidwell and Bergen. One of the buildings, it's 156. Back there on the rooftop, Bergen and Bidwell, running roof to roof. He took off once he showed you guys into the building. In 1321, he's running roof to roof. Running northbound, should be on Bergen, running northbound from Bidwell. He's on the roof, wearing all black. He took off as soon as you guys entered. He got something in his hand. I'm not sure if it was a pistol or not.
Wow. You can hear in the urgency in those voices from the scanner, the police scanner of the Jersey City Police Department, how uncertain and how frantic that situation was. I was listening to the scanner from the Jersey City Police Department when that happened in real time, and it was, very dramatic because they didn't know who was on the roof. They didn't know what this band was going to do. I don't think they got him down from the roof by themselves. He somehow got back inside the store. I don't know. We just don't know. But at the time it happened, and you can hear the urgency in those officers' voices. This was, they were worried that there was going to be more shooting from this gentleman on the roof. Tim Fleischer is at the Jersey City Medical Center, and when we learned, Tim, of that officer dying, you were just signing off. 2 other officers there, and maybe 1 civilian as well, and then we know several bodies inside that store. What was the reaction there, and also have you seen any movement there?
There's been very little movement here at all, Bill. A couple of other officers have arrived, lights flashing, that sort of thing. Here behind me, a number of other police agencies, the Port Authority, are helping to try to control the situation and to manage the traffic, which has started to increase with the rush hour. But we've not seen any additional traffic since that news has come out from the Hudson County Prosecutor's Office. Certainly the tragedy. The mayor did refer to it at the start of his press conference, saying that the officers that were wounded were brought here to the Jersey City Medical Center. Sadly, one of them has passed, and that the other is being treated for a shoulder injury. Within the last several minutes or so, the New Jersey Office of the Attorney General has put out a statement. Our hearts break for the family of the fallen Jersey City police officer and for the entire law enforcement family. Today's tragic events serve as a stark reminder of just how our brave first responders stand ready to run into danger at a moment's notice to keep us safe. Certainly, they did that first at the cemetery, and then as this thing unfolded, then they ran to the supermarket where there you saw that heavy barrage of gunfire. Again, the state president for the PBA, we are told, is also here. He and no doubt other Jersey City police officers are here for moral support for the others and for the 2 wounded officers that are being treated. We're hoping that he might say something at some point within the next couple of hours here as we monitor this situation. But again, I think that what we're starting to see at this point are a number of condolences and feelings toward the Jersey City officer who gave his life, and certainly those who put their lives on the line today. Bill?
That was a lot of people, to be sure. Tim, thank you for that. Keep us posted if anything develops at the hospital there. We are waiting, of course, for the police department, and it's perhaps one reason why they were in a hurry to give us a briefing and give you the briefing, the public, and then go back to the work of trying to figure out exactly who was inside and the bodies that are inside that kosher supermarket, J.C. Kosher Supermarket on Martin Luther King Drive in Jersey City. And we're told only that there are several dead people inside there. And it's just very sad news. We don't know who they are, what they were doing there. We don't know if they were the gunmen inside there. We were told that 1 or possibly 2 gunmen were neutralized, so you can draw those conclusions, but there were also people who were shopping and working there as well. We know at least 1 person got out of that supermarket and gave police important information about who was inside and what was happening inside. And they didn't have any eyes inside there, except when they got into various buildings and in position, and they surrounded that supermarket, surrounded the whole block and all the buildings, all the rear entrances and exits out of that block, that residential and commercial block, and they had a good way of looking inside, and they could see what was happening inside there. Darla Miles has been listening to what was been going on here, and Darla, we are beginning to sort of put some of the pieces of this puzzle, but there are a lot of pieces that are still missing. They will be fit into place, I assume, sometime later tonight or tomorrow.
Absolutely, Bill. And as you noticed in that news conference with the Jersey City Mayor, Stephen Fulop, what he didn't say was really important. He came out, he confirmed that you have 1 officer who's deceased, another one injured in the shoulder, 2 others injured, and he also confirmed that there were multiple persons deceased inside of that kosher supermarket. But the dots in between that connect these incidents really still unknown at this point. And because those details were not provided at that press conference, you can just assume the level of investigation that is taking place right now with Jersey City and the other corresponding collaborating agencies at this point. But it all started here. It started at the Bayview Cemetery behind me right now. ABC News has confirmed that this is the working theory that investigators are taking their vantage point at this time. The working theory from this investigation, according to ABC News, is that the plainclothes police officers may have been involved or responding to a drug deal gone bad. This is according to ABC News. We know that there were only 2 suspects involved in this particular incident, according to ABC News, and that is when it devolved into one officer being shot and killed here, another being shot in the shoulder, and then, to be exact, Bill, I've been going in so many different directions, but just to confirm, that supermarket is only a half mile from here, but because of the broad scope of this scene, lots of streets were shut down. Number one, just to control traffic, again, to preserve the chain of evidence from one scene to the next. In terms of the officers who were shot here, sources just saying they were plainclothes narcotics officers, but we're still waiting to have all that confirmed by Jersey City Police, as well as the PBA at this point. The PBA, heartbroken, obviously, at this time. This is what they announced about an hour ago, saying that several officers were injured. But because this is still, it's such a big crime scene, it involves so many different people, so many different locations. That is one reason why you have investigators really taking their time to make sure they have the information that they need to inform the public. The last thing they want to do is put out misinformation, especially when you have an investigation this large. Bill?
You heard the news conference, or maybe you didn't. Did you hear the briefing? Did you hear it?
I did.
Okay, so if we're not going to conjecture on what happened to the suspects, but if they were in custody, you would think that they would say that.
Well, when neutralized, you just have to define that word. You know, we can't presume anything, but we do know that they were neutralized. So that is an ambiguous term that law enforcement is using right now, and it's leading to the conjecture that you just mentioned, Bill. And so, you know, we don't know in terms of the number of civilians that may be deceased inside of that supermarket, the number of suspects, but ABC has confirmed there are only 2 suspects in this case. Yep. We know that police have confirmed that 2 suspects are neutralized, and we do know that multiple people are deceased inside of that supermarket.
All right. Good reporting out there, Darla, and to Tony Yates as well. Jim Dolan at the scene with it, where he says it's kind of chaotic. Darla, thank you very much. Just updating you as we get prepared to throw to a break in about a minute and then go to the beginning of Eyewitness News First at 4, when we will have a complete analysis and wrap up and the latest of what happened here. 12:30 today, 2 suspects in a cemetery in Jersey City, the Bayview Cemetery, with some undercover police officers with the drug enforcement detail for the Jersey City Police Department. They got into it. Something went terribly wrong here, and shots were fired. And then the suspects ran into a U-Haul. They took it to the right outside the scene where the supermarket is, a kosher supermarket, and then the shootout began inside that supermarket. 1 police officer killed, 2 wounded, and several people dead inside the supermarket. We're going to have the latest in just 2.5 minutes on Eyewitness News First at 4. I'm Bill Ritter. A very tragic day in Jersey City.
I get to work with one of my